One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, 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 oh.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against, yes, glory is destined. Everyday women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots, we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, 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 oh. Now the war is not over, victory isn't won, but we'll fight on to the finish, and then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh glory, oh.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Minter, and I'm privileged to be the MC for this event. And I'm pleased to welcome you on behalf of the Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation to this morning's premier breakfast. We're here to recognize and celebrate three things. One, the work of the Fairfax Renaissance, an extraordinary community development corporation engaged in rebuilding Cleveland's neighborhoods. And they might say, a premier neighborhood, and just watch us. Secondly, to honor the legacy of former Congressman Louis Stokes by presenting the 16th Louis Stokes Community Visionary Award. And third, presenting that award to the Honorable John Lewis, one of this nation's civil rights icons and a great moral leader in troubled times. Why are we celebrating Congressman Lewis? You've already watched the Selma trailer depicting him 4 times in that video. It sets the tone for this morning. Now, as we begin, let me make the plea every master of ceremony makes. Guess what? Silence your phones. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce the persons who are here on the dais. To my left and your left, the Honorable John Lewis, United States House of Representatives, 5th Congressional District, State of Georgia. Denise Van Leer, Executive Director of the Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation. Carol F. Hoover. The Honorable Marcia Fudge, United States House of Representatives, 11th Congressional District. The Reverend Dr. Otis Moss. And Michael Taylor, Senior Vice President of PNC Bank. There's a vacant chair that will be filled soon. And at the back tier, Stephen Boucher, the Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation Board President and Business Development Manager for Alliance Solutions. Marcia Mockabee, President and CEO of the Urban League of Cleveland. Mayor Frank G. Jackson, the 57th Mayor of the City of Cleveland. Blaine Griffin, Ward 6, Cleveland City Council. Mickey Burns, President and General Manager of WKYC TV. Michael L. Nelson, Senior President of the NAACP, on leave of absence right now because he's running for judge. It is always a challenge to recognize the names and faces of all of the public officials in the audience, but there is one who we would introduce at this point because of her relationship to the Congress and to Congressman Lewis and Congressman Fudge, and that is Mary Rose O'Carr. And is here someplace. Would you please stand? And I would ask that other public officials who are in the audience, we'd like to thank you for your dedicated public service and ask you to stand and be recognized at this time. Other officials. You'll hear more about the Lewis Stokes Visionary Award during this breakfast. The Congressman received the very first award, Congressman Stokes, and never missed presenting the award to past honorees. Only in death, he could not be with us. Later this morning, we'll have the opportunity to recognize Jay Stokes, his wife, and I'll have more to say about that. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation. This corporation is proud to say that they exist to help the people of their neighborhood live in a community that's a good place to call home. To bring their programs to life, they establish partnerships between residents, businesses, social service agencies, and institutions. You have demonstrated some of your understanding about this corporation by your attendance here today. It is completing its 25th year of dynamic leadership in one of our city's most historic communities, the Fairfax neighborhood. And the person who has been on the ground floor for much of those 25 years is the woman who I now introduce to you. It is my privilege to introduce to you Denise Van Leer, the Executive Director of the Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We truly appreciate it. On behalf of the Board of Directors, the staff, the residents, and the volunteers of Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation, we welcome you. And could I have all of those people please stand wherever you are in the room? Board members, staff, and volunteers. Thank you. FRDC has honored a long line of visionary leaders who have demonstrated a lifelong commitment to the struggle for human dignity, respect, and building community, such as Congressman Charles Rangel, Attorney Fred Gray, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Dr. Edgar Jackson, and this year in honoring Congressman John Lewis. This is the first year that we're holding the award without Congressman Lewis Stokes, for whom it was named, to recognize him for his assistance in helping us to secure federal funding for the Bicentennial Village Initiative way back in 1996. A project that served as a catalyst for change and renewal in the Fairfax neighborhood. Please join me for a moment of silence for Congressman Stokes. Thank you. And now I would like to recognize this year's sponsor, our visionary sponsor, PNC Bank. Thank you so much, Paul Clark and Michael Taylor, for your partnership. We appreciate it. And the remaining sponsors in alphabetical order, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, Black Leadership AIDS Crisis Coalition, Case Western Reserve University, whose president, Barbara Snyder, was presented with the 15th Visionary Award in 2015. J.P. Morgan Chase and Company, City Architecture, Cleveland Clinic, CMHA, Cleveland State University Foundation, Dollar Bank, First National Bank, the Good Community Foundation, Huntington Bank, Key Bank, LCR Enterprises, McGregor Pace, Millennia Housing Management, Ohio Savings Bank, South Euclid United Church of Christ, Taft Law, Third Federal Savings and Loan, Thompson Hine LLP, Reverend Lee A. Trotter Fund, Aqaba Mosque Foundation, the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, and WKYC. Thank you for your support. I would also like to thank the Stokes family for continuing to work with us to allow us to continue with this Visionary Award. Several other people I need to thank is Steve Minter. Steve is a past recipient of the award in 2001 in this very ballroom, who agreed to MC the event for us and provided invaluable assistance in the planning committee and in many other ways, including a special surprise that I have for him. Steve, for your invaluable assistance, we have made a gift to the Stephen Dolly Minter Scholarship at Baldwin Wallace College. Preference is expressed for scholarships for underrepresented student minorities, such as African American and Hispanic students with financial need. Thank you so much, Steve. And also to Marsha Maccabee, the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, who aided us in getting Congressman Lewis here today. Thank you so much. We have some special guests with us today, and as I call your organization, if you stand up. So these guests are future leaders who need to understand that is the sacrifice of others that help them enjoy the rights and privileges that they have today. They're seated in the middle of the room. And please stand as I call you. So from Cleveland Public Schools, Bolton Elementary School, we have Principal King and Lauren and Richard. And we also have Derek from John Hay High School. From Breakthrough Schools, we have Miss Van Leer and Lanija from E-Prep, Woodland Hills. And from Citizens Academy, we have Zion and his dad. And then we have a whole table of Cleveland Clinic Lewis Stokes scholars. Where are you guys at? There they are. So you can ask one of them what it means to be a Lewis Stokes scholar. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you what we're working on and why. In the mid-1990s, FRDC went through a transformative process. The city of Cleveland was designated an empowerment zone, and Fairfax was one of the neighborhoods chosen to make up that zone. New staff was hired, and the organization completed its first master plan. The neighborhood was divided into 4 phases for revitalization, and in 2017, we are working in what was dubbed the 4th phase 20 years ago. Since then, we have completed some notable projects, among them Quincy Place, our office building, the Langston Hughes Center, a former Andrew Carnegie Library housing the McGregor PACE program, and Cleveland Clinic's Community Health and Outreach Center, Griot Village, the first affordable intergenerational housing development in the state of Ohio in 2015, and in 2016, we completed a Boone Playground at Griot Village with Morgan Stanley. In 2017, we will begin development in an area we refer to as Innovation Square. Innovation Square is located in the area that we dubbed the 4th phase 20 years ago. Its eastern boundary is East 105th Street, or Opportunity Corridor. Have to get used to that. Its western boundary is East 95th Street. Cedar Avenue to the north and Quincy to the south. It's designed as a mixed income community offering over 400 new units of housing, including infill single-family homes, townhomes, and mixed-use buildings. The project includes an improved RTA rapid station at East 105th and Quincy. It'll also feature at its center a community gathering place, Playwright Park, which will begin in October. We're very excited about the project. To the east of Innovation Square is an area that we referred to as New Economy Neighborhood way back in 2003 in our master plan. Envisioned as a technology research district, the area was envisioned as an ideal location for collaborative efforts with area anchor institutions and as a location for promising research and technology companies to locate and grow. So fast forward to 2017, and currently under construction at the southeast corner of East 105th and Cedar is IBM Explorers that will employ 300 persons. An emerging neighborhood market analysis by Cleveland State released in May 2017 stated as part of its key findings that Greater Cleveland was transitioning into a knowledge economy, led by the region's growing eds and med sector. The analysis pinpointed a part of the city that was of particular importance. That part is the intersection of East 105th and Cedar Avenue, and the report states, the block is arguably the geographic epicenter of the region's transition into the knowledge economy. Continued investment in the vicinity could be catalytic. So we're very excited, and that's what we're doing. And yay, I'm excited about it. It's been a long time coming, so. With that said, we are more than excited to be part of the transformation currently underway, not just in Fairfax, but in Cleveland. And as you can see, development takes time, it takes vision, and committed partners who value the vision more than individual goals and work together to make the vision reality despite the difficulties. So FRDC sincerely appreciates your supports today and looks forward to working with you to make the big vision a reality. And as a colleague of mine often says, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Thank you. I have one more task today. So, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss, Jr. is one of America's most influential leaders. In 2008, Reverend Moss retired from Olivet Institutional Baptist Church following 33 years of distinguished service. He has been actively involved in advocating for the achievement of education, civil and human rights, and social justice issues for all of his adult life. In 1997, in conjunction with University Hospital's health system and Olivet Institutional Baptist Church, Dr. Moss provided the vision to establish the University Hospital's Otis Moss Jr. Healthcare Center at East 89th and Quincy, providing outpatient care to the Fairfax community. I now have the pleasure of introducing the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss Jr., Pastor Emeritus of Olivet Institutional Baptist Church, for the invocation.
Let us pray. God of love, God of liberation, God of redemption, we praise your name and give you thanks. We thank you for this committed organization serving the needs of our community and touching the lives of women, men, and children on a daily basis. Oh God, we give you thanks for our servant and friend, Congressman John Lewis, and those who work with him and walk with him. And we thank you for his days of struggle and continuing struggle, that all of your children can walk fearlessly the earth with dignity. And as we break bread together, send us away with renewed determination to touch the lives of those who suffer, to touch the lives of those who have been cast out and left out and thrown into the cold winds of neglect. hear our prayer in this time and place, and give to us the courage, the strength, the commitment to use the time we have been given to serve you in the present age and leave that which we touch better than we found it. Bless this gathering. Bless this food and guide our lives day by day. In the name of our Lord, amen.
I know everyone is enjoying their breakfast and the conversation, but we want to move on towards the main event. Earlier, both Denise Van Leer and I had the opportunity to mention and underscore that this is the Louis Stokes Visionary Award. We are very fortunate this morning to have Jay Stokes with us, his beloved wife of 55 years, their children, and members of the Stokes family. Many of them are in the audience, and I would like to ask them to stand. Please join me in thanking them for coming this morning. The Stokes family, please stand. I've had the wonderful privilege in the past few months to live in the same large residence with Jay Stokes, who lives at Judson Manor, located in University Circle. Judson Manor has received a gift, has made a gift in your honor to the Gardner Music Fund at the Judson Foundation in recognition, Jay, of the inspirational life that you've led and to your personal commitment to making Cleveland a better place to live. Congressman Lewis is no stranger to Cleveland. He's received an honorary doctorate from Cleveland State University. He's received the prestigious Anisfield Wolf Book Award from the Cleveland Foundation in 1999 for Walking with the Wind, a memoir of the movement. He wrote at that time something that stuck with me over and over, and I quote, "When I care about something, I'm prepared to take the long, hard road. That's what faith is all about." Congressman, you also wrote about your family. And not long ago, you were the subject of the PBS program, Finding Your Roots, hosted by Professor Henry Louis Gates, Jr. Dr. Gates has been unearthing family histories of influential people, helping shape our national identity. We have a short clip from that video to share with you and this audience. As Dr. Gates states, John Lewis is the last living member of the Big Six. In addition, Dr. Gates, professor and director of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research at Harvard University, as I mentioned, chairs the Anisfield Book Award jury. He was in Cleveland this past Thursday, and he recorded a special greeting for you, John. And we're going to play both of those videos.
Today, John is the last living member of the Big Six, the youngest of the leaders of the civil rights movement that transformed American race relations in the 1960s. He was a key player in the events that defined a generation, from the Nashville sit-ins, to the Freedom Rides, to the Great March on Washington.
We know when we are denied the right to vote, all of us here tonight have somewhat of an obligation to do whatever we can to make this state a place of justice for all of the people and not just for some of the people.
John Lewis's campaign for voting rights has been a deeply personal mission ever since he marched in protest from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. He had no idea that research into his family's past would make this mission even more meaningful.
There's one more thing that I want you to know, John, about your great-great-grandfather, Tobias Carter. And it's something of a miracle. Can you turn the page, please?
Yes.
John, this is a page from the voter registration rolls for Alabama in the year 1867. Could you read the transcribed name?
Carter, Tobias.
Your great-great-grandfather, Tobias Carter, registered to vote as a citizen of the United States of America in 1867, 2 years after he was freed from slavery. The second he could register to vote.
That's incredible. It is incredible. I don't think my parents or grandparents ever voted before 1965. They weren't allowed to register to vote, as far as I know.
The images captured that day in Selma are seared onto our national consciousness. And as we look at them today, it seems unbelievable that the African-American right to vote could have posed such a profound threat as to incite this kind of violence.
The vote is the most powerful instrument, most powerful nonviolent tool in a democratic society. But knowing that a member of my family registered and voted in Alabama 100 years before I did, before my mother, my father, my grandparents. It's amazing. So maybe, just maybe, it's part of my DNA, my bloodline, or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, who would have believed that your ancestors were the pioneering people who voted in the state of Alabama among the former slaves?
It's just incredible.
John, I've admired you from the first time I saw you speak, which of course was at the Great March on Washington. I was 12 years old, little colored boy in the hills, West Virginia, Piedmont, West Virginia. And then 2 years later, of course, when I saw you suffer that terrible beating on Pettus Bridge. You've been a hero of mine since I was 12. The idea that I would grow up and even meet you, let alone become what I hope you consider as a friend, is one of truly great surprises and great honors of my life. And being able to trace your family tree gave me such a delight to find out that your great-great-grandfather, as soon as he could, after he was freed from the evil abyss of slavery, as soon as he could, against the wishes of many of his neighbors, former Confederates, of course, he defied the odds and ran the gamut of his full humanity and registered to vote. And when I showed that to you, it occurred to me that probably because of the rollback on Reconstruction, nobody between your great-great-grandfather and you, because of the Voting Rights Act, on that branch of your family tree, had ever registered to vote or voted before or since. That was amazing. And your reaction when you said, I guess it's in my DNA. I guess it's part of my bloodline. And then you held my hand and you said, this is too much. And you wept. That was one of the great moments in the history of my life, my brother, to be able to share that with you. I love you, John. No one deserves this prize, this award, more than you. Congratulations from the bottom of my heart.
It's now my pleasure to introduce to this audience someone who probably knows John the longest and has known him a long time and can really talk from personal experience about him. And that's Carol Hoover, who in her early 20s was a member of the executive leadership team of SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an assistant to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., present with the King family when Dr. King received the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo in 1964. The first African-American woman to be president and CEO of the largest chamber of commerce in the nation, the Greater Cleveland Growth Association. Co-founder of the Greater Cleveland Roundtable, engaged in addressing the issues of race relations and economic development. Carol is a tireless, quiet, behind-the-scenes civic leader and is president of and CEO of Hoover Millstein and a longtime friend and associate of Congressman Lewis. I'm also pleased to say, I hope I'm a longtime friend of hers too. we've asked her to make a personal introduction of the Congressman. Carol?
To the Honorable Mayor and Congresswoman Fudge, obviously our honoree Congressman Lewis, Reverend clergy, and to our esteemed audience and friends of Fairfax. I just want to take this opportunity to say what a privilege it has been over these years to support the work of John Lewis, to see evidence, as I am in Georgia regularly, of his great footprint there, but across the nation. Many of us sometimes say things that we'll do anything for the cause or we'll die for the cause, but there are some people like Congressman John Lewis and like Reverend Otis Moss, when they say that they are prepared to give their life for this cause, they have put themselves in a position where it is very clear that those are not words, but it's a way of life. I want to present a gift to our guest, Congressman Lewis. This is Dr. King in Yardrow. Yes. And Yardrow discontinued the Yardrow discontinued the Martin Luther King statue in 2005. So I want you to have this. It comes with my love and respect because it comes out of my cabinet at home. Okay. So I gave it up for you. I gave it up.
Now you know if maybe you invite Carol to come for something special, she's got a cabinet at home. It's now time to present the Lewis Stokes Community Visionary Award. And there can't be any more appropriate person to do that than our Congresswoman, Marcia Fudge, a dedicated public servant who begins each morning with a firm promise to do the people's work. It is this simple philosophy that defines her as a member of substance, and character, and a person who always works very hard to keep the promise. She is a committed public servant who brings a hard-working, problem-solving spirit to the Congress and the task of creating jobs and building that safety net and defending the safety net that is so important to the persons in this community as well as the country. Congresswoman Fudge has served the people of Ohio for more than 2 decades, beginning with the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. She was the first African American and the first female mayor of Warrensville Heights, where she led the city in shoring up a sagging retail base and providing new residential construction. And I think all of us in this region know that she continues to be a champion for Northeast Ohio, for minorities, for all persons, and for great leadership in the Congress. And it's my pleasure to ask her to come and make this presentation to Congressman Lewis.
Thank you very much and good morning. Mayor, all dais guests, I do want to go back to something that was discussed a little earlier, and because I have the mic, I'm just going to do whatever I choose to do. I had the good fortune of attending school with 3 of Lou Stokes' children. Shelley, stand up, Shelley. Judge Angie was my actual classmate. Stand up. Chucky was right behind me. Although, Lori, I want you to know I'm really closer to your age. Laurie, stand up. These are some of the greatest people you ever want to meet in your life. I want you to give them another hand. And then when I went to Washington, I had one person in my office. It was Eric Hammond, who was the congressman's grandson. Eric, stand up. I think it is special that they would come to see John receive this award today, so I thank you all on behalf of all of the residents of this district. It is my pleasure to be the 3rd person to represent the people of the 11th Congressional District. Thank you all. Roll call, which I don't know if you know what roll call is. It's a Hill rag. I call it a rag, I'm sorry. It's a magazine that we read every day on the Hill. And this is how they describe John Lewis. It says, John Lewis is a genuine American hero and moral leader who commands widespread respect in the chamber. He is often called one of the most courageous persons the civil rights movement ever produced. John Lewis has dedicated his life to protecting human rights, securing civil liberties, and building what he calls the beloved community. His dedication to the highest ethical standards and moral principles has won him the admiration of many of his colleagues on both sides of the aisle in the United States Congress. He was born the son of sharecroppers outside of Troy, Alabama. He grew up on his family's farm and attended segregated public schools in Pike County, Alabama. As a young boy, he was inspired by the activism surrounding the Montgomery bus boycotts and the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which he heard on radio broadcasts. In those pivotal moments, John made a decision to become a part of the civil rights movement. And ever since then, he has remained at the vanguard of progressive social movements and the human rights struggle in the United States. As a student at Fisk University, John organized sit-in demonstrations at segregated lunch counters in Nashville, Tennessee. In 1961, he volunteered to participate in the Freedom Rides, which challenged segregation at interstate bus terminals across the South. John risked his life on those rides, many times by simply sitting in seats that were reserved for white patrons. He was also beaten severely by angry mobs and arrested by police for challenging the injustice of Jim Crow segregation in the South. I want you to remember, law and order is not always justice. Hosea Williams, another civil rights leader, and John led over 600 peaceful, orderly protests across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama led more than 600 peaceful protesters in Selma, Alabama on March 1965. They intended to march from Selma to Montgomery to demonstrate the need for voting rights in the state. The marchers were attacked, and it became known as Bloody Sunday. News broadcasts and photographs revealing the senseless cruelty of the segregated South helped hasten the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. One of the most moving and memorable experiences of my life was going across that bridge with John Lewis. John led us across that bridge 50 years after Bloody Sunday, and you can still see it is still emotional for me. Despite more than 40 arrests, physical attacks, and serious injuries, John Lewis remained a devoted advocate of the philosophy of nonviolence. In 1977, John Lewis was appointed by President Jimmy Carter to direct a volunteer agency called Action. In 1981, he was elected to the Atlanta City Council. He was elected to Congress in November 1986 and has served as a U.S. representative of Georgia's 5th Congressional District since that time. John Lewis holds a BA in Religion and Philosophy from Fisk University, and he is a graduate of the American Baptist Theological Seminary, both of which are in Nashville, Tennessee. John Lewis is the recipient of the highest civilian honor granted by the United States, awarded by President Barack Obama, the Medal of Freedom. John is deserving of any and all recognitions, for there is no one more brave, no one more fearless, no one more committed than John. A lot of people say they would risk their life for what they believe in. John has done it. John Lewis is the co-author of the National Book Award-winning and #1 New York Times best-selling graphic novel memoir trilogy. This is crazy today, John. You did this so much. It's called March. That's all you need to know, by March. John Lewis lives in Atlanta. He has one son, John Miles. John is a quiet, gentle man until you get him riled up. It is my privilege to serve with John. He is a giant. It is my pleasure to call you friend, to call you colleague. God bless you, John, and congratulations.
Good morning. Delighted, honored, very pleased to be here in this great city. Mr. Mayor, honorable elected officials, my friend, my colleague, your congressperson, Congresswoman Fudge, you're the best. Thank you. The people of Cleveland, This district, more than lucky. You're lucky, more than lucky. You're blessed to have this young woman standing up, speaking out, and fighting every single day for what is right, for what is fair, and what is just. Carol Hoover, thank you. It's good to see you. You still look the same. Otis Moss, my beloved friend and brother, thank you. You're one of the great religious leaders of our nation. Thank you for continuing to preach the truth. We need it now more than ever before. Thank you, brother. Steve, thank you for your leadership and for your vision. You're right, we met some time ago. There's so many individuals that I recognize and see, schoolmates, but I tell you, Chucky, Jay, other members of the Stokes family. Chucky, I remember when your family brought you to Atlanta to go to Morehouse. I think we had a little luncheon, a little reception for you at the house. And it's just good to know you, to know the family. But to receive this honor, named for Lou Stokes, is too much. A man of all seasons. Unbelievable leader. When Lou Stokes stood up and spoke on the floor of the House, people listened. He inspired us all to do our best. Now you heard in the introduction that I didn't grow up in a big city like Cleveland or Dayton or Cincinnati, or Buffalo, or Detroit. Congressman Floyd told you that I grew up in rural Alabama. The son of sharecroppers. But I remember in 1944 when I was only 4 years old, and I really do. How many of you remember when you were 4? What happened to the rest of us? My father had saved $300, and a man sold him 110 acres of land. We still own this land today. On this farm, we raised a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. I won't tell you the story that as a little boy, Otis Moss, I've heard it a few times, that I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So as a little child, it became my responsibility to care for the chickens. And from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we would gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard, like you gathered here this morning in this hall, and we would have church. My brothers and sisters and cousins were lined outside of the chicken yard, and the chicken would just gather in the chicken yard, and I would start speaking or preaching. And when I look back on it, some of these chickens would bow their heads, some of these chickens would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to in the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listen to me today in the Congress. As a matter of fact, Congresswoman, some of those chickens was just a little more productive. At least they produce eggs. So don't tell any of my colleagues I said that, but that's the way I feel today. And sometime growing up, I would be out there working in the field, picking cotton, gathering peanuts. I would fall behind, and my mother would say, "Boy, you need to catch up." And I would say, "This is hard work." And she would say, "Hard work never killed anybody." I said, "Well, it's about to kill me." I didn't like what I saw as a child growing up. Louis Stokes didn't like what he saw in America as a member of Congress. He did everything possible to make health care available for all of our citizens. He believed that health care was a right for everybody, and it should not be judged by your zip code or your wallet or pocketbook. When I was growing up in rural Alabama, we didn't have health insurance. We had burial insurance. People were not prepared to live. They were prepared to die. And you heard people, my grandaunt and grandparents saying, "My mother and father, we want to be put away well." We didn't have health insurance. When you look at the landscape in America today, in this city, in Washington, D.C., and all around our country, look at health centers, what Lou Stokes did to make things better. We miss him today. He did so much. And we all today can do much more. I'm deeply honored to be here in Cleveland to accept this award named for my friend Lou Stokes. Lou Stokes was a true public servant dedicated to our country and to the lives and well-being of all of our people. He had a major impact on providing health care to the entire nation. He never gave up. He never gave in. He kept the faith, and he kept his eyes on the prize. And that's what we must all do today. So I salute each and every one of you for being here in support of the efforts to make Cleveland, to make this state and our nation a better place. Now, we've come a distance. We made a lot of progress. But there are forces in America today that are trying to take us back to another time and another place. We've come too far. We made too much progress to go back. We're only going forward. When I was growing up, we would visit the little town of Troy, visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee. I saw those signs that said white men, colored men, white women, white waiting, colored waiting. And I asked my mother, my father, my grandparents, why? And they would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble. But the action of Rosa Parks, the words and leadership of Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me to find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble, what I call today a good trouble, necessary trouble. And it's time again for all of us to get in trouble. Good trouble, necessary trouble. My philosophy is very simple. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, we have a moral obligation to stand up. says something, to do something about it. Too many of our young people, too many of our children are being left out and left behind. We need to see that all of our young people, all of our children receive the best possible education, that all of our people receive good health care. I wrote Martin Luther King Jr. a letter in 1957 when I was 17 years old. I didn't tell my mother, I didn't tell my father, any of my sisters or brothers, or any of my teachers. I wanted to attend a little college 10 miles from my home called Troy State College, now known as Troy University. I submitted my application, my high school transcript. I never heard a word from the school. So I wrote Dr. King this letter. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote me back and sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket and invited me to come to Montgomery to meet with him. In the meantime, I've been accepted at a little college in Nashville, Tennessee, American Baptist. An uncle of mine gave me a $100 bill, more money than I ever had. Gave me a Foot Locker. I put everything I had in that Foot Locker, except those chickens. And took a Greyhound bus to Nashville, Tennessee. And after being in Nashville for about 3 weeks, I told one of my teachers, was a man that Odemons knew by the name of Kelly Miller Smith, was on the board of FCLC. I told him that I'd been in contact with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Kelly Miller Smith informed Dr. King that I was in school there. Martin Luther King Jr. got back in church and suggested when I was home for spring break to come and see him. So in March of 1958, by this time I'm 18 years old, I boarded a bus, traveled from Troy to Montgomery, and a young lawyer by the name of Fred Gray, who studied, went to law school right here in Cleveland, became one of the great lawyers of the Civil Rights Movement, met me at the bus station and drove me to the First Baptist Church in downtown Montgomery, pastored by the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, and ushered me into the pastor's study. I saw Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Ralph Abernathy standing behind a desk. And Dr. King said, "Are you John Lewis? Are you the boy from Troy?" And I said, "Dr. King, I am John Robert Lewis." I gave my whole name. And he still called me the boy from Troy. But Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me. Rosa Parks inspired me. The students, the Little Rock Nine, inspired me. What you're doing here, you're helping to inspire another generation to stand up, to speak out, and to get in the way. It doesn't matter whether we're black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. We are one people, we are one family, we are one house. We all live in the same house, the American house, and we must look out for each other. When we were planning the March on Washington in 1963, the so-called Big Six, it was the six of us, and then we invited 4 major white religious and labor leaders to join us. But it was a man by the name of A. Philip Randolph, who was born in Jacksonville, Florida, moved to New York City and became a champion of civil rights, human rights, and labor rights. He would say over and over again, maybe our foremothers and our forefathers all came to this great land in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. And that is true today. We're all in the same boat. We got to look out for each other and care for each other. When the Pope came and spoke to a joint session of the Congress, remember, he said, we're all immigrants. We all come from some other place. It doesn't make sense to have hundreds, thousands of young people, children, more than 850,000, and others living in fear that something is going to happen to them or to their parents. Whether they live in Cleveland or in Atlanta, we must set these young people free and set them on a path to citizenship. That's the right thing to do. I want to thank you for this great honor. It will inspire me like it has inspired so many others to continue to fight the good fight. It is true that I was beaten and left bloody, almost died on that bridge, but God Almighty kept me here. And so unbelievable doctors like you have at the Cleveland Clinic kept me here. It was a group of nuns at a little hospital called the Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma that took care of 17 of us. And after the march from Selma to Montgomery was completed, 3 weeks later, some unbelievable doctors had me to go to the Mass General for further treatment. And last October, I was in Rochester, New York, and I went to the mother's house, where many of the nuns, many of the sisters are retired. Congresswoman Louise Slaughter took me there. And 3 of the nuns that had taken care of me were there. They saw me, they cried, and I cried with them. We never know who's going to help us cross that bridge. And I just saw a young, nephew of yours that I met, Matthew. When he was 7, and now he's in the 9th grade, he remembered me. You never know the child, the individual that you're going to help or influence or inspire. Hadn't been for Dr. King and Rosa Parks. And a teacher in that poor elementary school who told me over and over again, read, my child, read. And I tried to read everything. The few books, the newspapers. We were too poor to have a subscription to the local newspaper, but my grandfather had one, and he would pass it on to us each day as he read it. So do what you can to help others if you pass this way. Never give up. Never give in. Keep the faith. Continue to build. Stephen, you heard me tell this story. I'll tell it again, and I'll be finished. When I was growing up outside of Troy, Alabama, on that farm, we had an aunt by the name of Seneva. And my Aunt Seneva lived in what we call a shotgun house. Most of you living here in Cleveland, you don't know what a shotgun house is. It's an old house, one way in, one way out. My Aunt Seneva didn't have a wonderful, beautiful landscape lawn, sand, dirt. This house was old and ragged, but every Saturday she would go out and cut some bushes from a dogwood tree and tie these bushes together and make what she called a brush broom. And she would sweep this dirt yard very clean. But one Saturday afternoon, a group of my brothers and sisters and a few of my first cousins were out playing in her dirt yard, and an unbelievable storm came up. The wind started blowing, the thunder started rolling, the lightning started flashing, and the rain started beating on the tin roof of this old shotgun house. She got us all in. And it appeared that one side of the house was about to blow away. She would have us to hold hands to walk to that side. If another side appeared to be blowing away, she would have us to walk to that corner. We were little children walking with the wind, but we never left the house. I said to you here, in the name of Lou Stokes, the wind may blow, the lightning may flash, and the rain may beat down on our old house. Call it the house of Cleveland. Call it the house of Atlanta or the house of Washington. We all live in the same house. We all have an obligation, a mission, and a mandate to do what we can to save this little piece of real estate we call Earth for generations yet unborn. I say thank you very much. Thank you.
I believe that we have been inspired. In Cleveland, we have a custom with our public officials, particularly our highest public official, the mayor of the city, to always ask the mayor to make remarks. And amazingly, he always seems to decline. But I want to recognize the mayor and Congressman. He's got the proclamation here for you. So I want to give that proclamation. That's in lieu of the words that he undoubtedly has said. Was it worth coming? Thank you for your presence. Thank you for honoring Louis Stokes. Thank you for honoring Congressman Lewis. And thank you for your money, which will help the Fairfax Development Corporation. As you leave in the reception area out here, you will find a number of books. They happen to be books written by Congressman Lewis, and he's going to go out there and sign them for any of you that want to purchase them, provided that you do it in a hurry, because he's got to get to a plane. Thank you for coming. Registration is that way where you can get the book signed, and I'll ask the members of the dais to remain for a few moments so that we can get a photo. Good morning.